This is Ron, and it is Tuesday, August the 22nd. Welcome to Story Time. I've been reading from the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, and today I'm reading Law 38, Think as you like, but behave like others. If you make a show of going against the times, flaunting your unconventional ideas and unorthodox ways, people will think that you only want attention and that you look down upon them. They will find a way to punish you for making them feel inferior. It is far safer to blend in and nurture the common touch. Share your originality only with tolerant friends and those who are sure to appreciate your uniqueness. Keys to power. We all tell lies and hide our true feelings, for complete free expression is a social impossibility. From an early age, we learn to conceal our thoughts, telling the prickly and insecure what we know they want to hear, watching carefully lest we offend them. For most of us, this is natural. There are ideas and values that most people accept, and it is pointless to argue. We believe what we want to then, but on the outside, we wear a mask. There are people, however, who see such restraints as an intolerable infringement on their freedom and who have a need to prove their superiority, the superiority of their values and beliefs. In the end, though, their arguments convince only a few and offend a great deal more. The reason arguments do not work is that most people hold their ideas and values without thinking about them. There is a strong emotional content in their beliefs. They really do not want to have to rework their habits of thinking, and when you challenge them, whether directly through your arguments or indirectly through your behavior, they are hostile. Wise and clever people learn early on that they can display conventional behavior and mouth conventional ideas without having to believe in them. The power these people gain from blending in is that of being left alone to have the thoughts they want to have and to express them to the people they want to express them to, without suffering isolation or ostracism. Once they have established themselves in a position of power, they can try to convince a wider circle of the correctness of their ideas, perhaps working indirectly using Campanella's strategies of irony and insinuation. In the late 14th century, the Spanish began a massive persecution of the Jews, murdering thousands and driving others out of the country. Those who remained in Spain were forced to convert. Yet, over the next 300 years, the Spanish noticed a phenomenon that disturbed them. Many of the converts lived their outward lives as Catholics, yet somehow managed to retain their Jewish beliefs, practicing the religion in private. Many of these so-called marranos, originally a derogatory term for being the Spanish for pig, attained high levels of government office, married into the nobility, and gave every appearance of Christian piety, only to be discovered late in life as practicing Jews. The Spanish Inquisition was specifically commissioned to ferret them out. Over the years, they mastered the art of dissimulation, displaying crucifixes liberally, giving generous gifts to churches, even occasionally making anti-Semitic remarks, and all the while maintaining their inner freedom and beliefs. In society, the Marranos knew outward appearances are what matter. This remains true today. The strategy is simple. As Campanella did in writing Atheism Conquered, make a show of blending in, even going so far as to be the most zealous advocate of the prevailing orthodoxy. If you stick to conventional appearances in public, few will believe you think differently in private. Do not be so foolish as to imagine that in our own time the old orthodoxies are gone. Jonas Salk, for instance, thought science had gotten past politics and protocol, and so, in his search for a polio vaccine, he broke all the rules, going public with the discovery before showing it to the scientific community, taking credit for the vaccine without acknowledging the scientists who had paved the way, making himself a star. The public may have loved him, but scientists shunned him. His disrespect for the community's orthodoxies left him isolated, and he wasted years trying to heal the breach and struggling for funding and cooperation. Bertolt Brecht underwent a modern form of inquisition, the House Un-American Activities Committee, and approached it with considerable canniness. Having worked off and on in the American film industry during World War II, in 1947 Brecht was summoned to appear before the committee to answer questions on his suspected communist sympathies. Other writers called before the committee made a point of attacking its members and of acting as belligerently as possible in order to gain sympathy for themselves. Brecht, on the other hand, who had actually worked steadfastly for the communist cause, played the opposite game. He answered questions with ambiguous generalities that defied easy interpretation. Call it the Campanella strategy. Brecht even wore a suit, a rare event for him, and made a point of smoking a cigar during the proceedings, knowing that a key committee member had a passion for cigars. In the end, he charmed the committee members, who let him go scot-free. Brecht then moved to East Germany, where he encountered a different kind of inquisition. Here, the communists were in power, and they criticized his plays as decadent and pessimistic. He did not argue with them, but made small changes in the performance scripts to shut them up. Meanwhile, he managed to preserve the published texts as written. His outward conformity in both cases gave him the freedom to work unhindered without having to change his thinking. In the end, he made his way safely through dangerous times in different countries through the use of little dances of orthodoxy, and proved he was more powerful than the forces of repression. Not only do people of power avoid the offenses of Jonas Salk, they also learn to play the clever fox and feign the common touch. This has been the ploy of con artists and politicians throughout the centuries. Leaders like Julius Caesar and Franklin D. Roosevelt have overcome their natural aristocratic stance to cultivate a familiarity with the common man. They've expressed this familiarity in little gestures, often symbolic, to show the people that their leaders share popular values despite their different status. The logical extension of this practice was the invaluable ability to be all things to all people. When you go into society, leave behind your own ideas and values and put on the mask that is most appropriate for the group in which you find yourself. Bismarck played this game successfully for years. There were people who vaguely understood what he was up to, but not clearly enough that it mattered. People will swallow the bait because it flatters them to believe that you share their ideas. They will not take you as a hypocrite if you are careful, for how can they accuse you of hypocrisy if you do not let them know exactly what you stand for? Nor will they see you as lacking in values. Of course you have values, the values you share with them while in their company. Authority. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Jesus Christ, Matthew chapter 7, verse 6. Reversal. The only time it is worth standing out is when you already stand out, when you've achieved an unshakable position of power and you can display your difference from others as a sign of distance between you. As President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson would sometimes hold meetings while he sat on the toilet. So, since no one else either could or would claim such a privilege, Johnson was showing people that he did not have to observe the protocols and niceties of others. The Roman Emperor Caligula played the same game. He'd wear a woman's negligee or a bathrobe to receive important visitors. He even went so far as to have his horse elected consul. But it backfired, for the people hated Caligula, and his gestures eventually brought his overthrow. The truth is that even those who attain the heights of power would be better off at least affecting the common touch, for at some point they may need popular support. Finally, there's always a place for the gadfly, the person who successfully defies custom and mocks what has grown lifeless in a culture. Oscar Wilde, for example, achieved considerable social power on this foundation. He made it clear that he disdained the usual ways of doing things, and when he gave public readings, his audiences not only expected him to insult them, but welcomed it. We notice, however, that his eccentric role eventually destroyed him. Even had he come to a better end, remember that he possessed an unusual genius. Without his gift to amuse and delight, his barbs would simply have offended people. And that is the end of the chapter, Law 38, about think what you want, but act like everybody else. There's another little anecdote in here that I wanted to read because I find particularly fascinating. It's called When the Waters Were Changed. Once upon a time, Kidir, the teacher of Moses, called upon mankind with a warning. At a certain date, he said, all the water in the world which had not been specially hoarded would disappear. It would then be renewed with different water which would drive men mad. Only one man listened to the meaning of this advice. He collected water and went to a secure place where he stored it and waited for the water to change its character. On the appointed date, the stream stopped running, the wells went dry, and the man who had listened seeing this happening, went to his retreat and drank his preserved water. When he saw from his security the waterfalls again beginning to flow, this man descended among the other sons of men. He found that they were thinking and talking in an entirely different way from before. Yet they had no memory of what had happened, nor of having been warned. When he tried to talk to them, he realized that they thought he was mad, and they showed hostility or compassion, not understanding. At first he drank none of the new water, but went back to his concealment to draw upon his supplies every day. Finally, however, he took the decision to drink the new water because he could not bear the loneliness of living, behaving, and thinking in a different way from everyone else. He drank the new water and became like the rest. Then he forgot all about his own store of special water, and his fellows began to look upon him as a madman who had miraculously been restored to sanity. And I like that particular story because it reminds me of a movie called Serpico, in which Serpico was a New York police officer, and he was on a police force that was extremely corrupt, and he was basically fighting this corruption while being a police officer. And of course he met all kinds of resistance, and including his fellow officers trying to get him killed. He had a girlfriend who told him a story and said her version of the story was that there was a kingdom and that everybody was happy in the kingdom until an evil wizard came and poisoned the well. And anybody who drank from the well would become insane. And, of course, everybody except for the king ended up drinking from this well and becoming insane. And everybody in the kingdom thought that the king was insane. And after a certain period of time, the king secretly slipped down to the well in the middle of the night, drank of the water, and the next day the whole kingdom rejoiced that the king had finally seen the light. And then the other one I liked was that little anecdote about the authority, which is do not give dogs what is holy, do not throw your pearls before swine. I'd always heard the term don't throw your pearls before swine, but I had no idea where it came from until I read that particular authority. On this, again, this is a situation where they could call it a law of power, but really what they're using for examples are people that are not in power, people that are really in positions where they're trying to survive. And that these are really not laws about power, but laws about how to get by, how to survive, and so that's what this is basically doing here, especially when they're talking about the Spanish Inquisition and the Jews going ahead and maintaining putting out their outward appearances as Catholics, but on the inside they're still practicing the Jewish faith. And so again, what it's also telling is in the reversal is it's the only times worth standing out is when you already stand out, when you have achieved an unshakable position of power. So how is it that you're going to be a chameleon, in essence, and achieve any power at all? You're not going to. You can't achieve any power by being all things to all people. You may end up being everybody's friend, advisor, something of that nature, but you're not going to be in a position of power. In order to be in a position of power, you have to deal with reality, and in reality you have to take stands. You have to learn, think, and find out what it is that's right and wrong, and do what's right, and do it at the right time. Anyways, that's the end of the Law 38, and coming up on Thursday, the 23rd is... the 24th. Thursday the 24th is Law 39, stir up waters to catch fish. Anger and emotion are strategically counterproductive. You must always stay calm and objective. But if you can make your enemies angry while staying calm yourself, you gain a decided advantage. Put your enemies off balance. Find the chink in their vanity through which you can rattle them, and you hold the strings. So that's going to be on Thursday the 24th. And so I wanted to apologize for not having any episodes read this past weekend. part of it was due to technical difficulties. I'd recorded something on Sunday, and it only recorded about 5 or 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it went blank for some reason. So I ended up having to re-record it today. So until Thursday, thank you for listening, and have a great day.